Chapter 32, Section 8, Anthrax. Anthrax has been around a long time. It wasn't until about the mid-late 19th century, with our friend Robert Koch, that we isolated the causative agent of anthrax, what we now refer to as Bacillus anthracis. Bacillus anthracis is a endospore forming gram-positive soil bacteria. He used mice as a means to go through and develop his Koch's postulates around his study of Bacillus anthracis. You can see here this bacterial smear that was stained with malachite green. Malachite green stained endospores. You can see the formation of the endospore in all of the bacteria. They're forming the endospore as their little, protection, their safe room against whatever's happening in the environment. Bacillus anthracis. It's a soil microbe. We find it primarily in associating with farm animals because they're out there in the dirt. That's where Bacillus anthracis naturally is occurring, in the dirt, in the soil. You grow up on or around a farm, hey, where's your animals going to be? More often than not, they're not in the barn, they're out in the fields. If it hasn't rained, it's dry, they're kicking up dust. And those dust particles, on those soil particles that's making up the dust, they're going to be Bacillus anthracis endospores. Now, anthrax comes in three forms. We are most aware of the pulmonary anthrax, because that's the one that's the disease that they talk about, the talking heads talk about on the news. Oh my God, an anthrax scare. Back the early 2000s, some a-hole decided to mail anthrax spores through the mail. People were opening up and finding a white powder. Wasn't the white powder, was the spores. The spores were on whatever the powder was made of. But it turns out, if you grew up on a farm or near a farm, you've been exposed. And often you'll see that farmers, people are out there in the fields, working in the fields, are going to develop what is called cutaneous anthrax. Out there, it's a warm day. What's going to happen when you're warm? You're sweating, your pores are going to open up. Help you sweat more, help, dissipate heat more and whatnot. Well, as those spores, your spores are opening up, dust is going to get down in them. On the dust particles, those soil particles, is going to be Bacillus anthracis spores. End of the day, you're cooling off because you're not out in the fields toiling, working hard. You're cooling off, your spores close, and they close around that endospore. Endospore germinates. Well, Bacillus anthracis makes some different toxins, which generally cause the damage in pulmonary, but now since it's caught into pores, it's going to start damaging your epidermis and your dermal layers. And if by chance you ingest water that's contaminated with soil, dust from an area that has quite a lot of Bacillus anthracis, you can get what's called gastrointestinal anthrax. The endospores make it through the stomach. Endospores germinate in your small intestine, and next thing you know, Bacillus anthracis is now growing in your stomach. For us adults, mild at best. You're going to get diarrhea and your body's going to flush it out. And since you have so many other bacterial species there, it's going to be outcompeted. But this is why they tell you not to feed honey to neonates, to young children, babies. If they haven't started solid foods yet, if they're not eating adult food like you do, like you do with a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, um, don't feed them honey because the bees are carrying dust and pollen on them. And again, the dust, the pollen's going to be Bacillus anthracis endospores. It gets into the honey. You do not autoclave honey to sterilize it. You just take it out of the hive, you bottle it, and you feed it. Well, basically, newborn, young infant, its gastrointestinal tract, while it has bacteria there, it is a very few species. So those few species are not going to be able to outcompete Bacillus anthracis. Bacillus anthracis will now colonize the small intestine, and all those anthrax bacteria are going to start producing toxins which will do damage to the baby. This right here is cutaneous. I think that's supposed to be the neck. That's the shirt collar. So chances are they were hot, sweaty, pores open up. Bacteria got down into the pores. The endospores got down into the pores. They germinated. And like I said, because it's producing toxins, it started damaging and it just spread. Here are tissue samples showing, what is it, lungs and nervous system. So it got into the lungs, it went septicemic, and it's now spread throughout the body.